It begins with a subtle astonishment that the sea, for all its restlessness, keeps old maps folded inside itself as neatly as letters in a drawer. And tonight, as we stand together at the edge of evening, we can hear those hidden maps rustle. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in the unmistakable way a secret makes space for someone willing to listen. That is the hook of this place. Not a declaration, but a beckoning. A hush that feels deliberate. A silence that tilts its head toward us with the quiet confidence of something ancient waiting just beneath the smooth skin of water. We answer gently. We lower our voices until the tide feels comfortable speaking back. And it does. A low, reliable rhythm we can match without effort. Breathing in as the near swell rises. Breathing out as it falls. As if the ocean itself were setting the tempo for our thoughts. The air tastes of salt and peat, sharing the breath of both river and sea. Evening light turns each moment like the slow page of an oversized book. Cool stones beneath our feet remember a different weather. And beneath those stones, the land continues, folded, patient, waiting without urgency. We let our attention drift over it the way a finger traces a seam. Here, before we move deeper, we make a small promise. To look slowly, to speak softly, to let the sea decide the pace of what is revealed. Listen again. The tide makes a courteous sound as it greets pebble and shell. Small clicks, soft whispers. Farther out, the long blue of evening receives the last warmth of the day like a held breath. And the surface, rather than a barrier, becomes a thin cloth through which hints begin to appear. A slanted ridge, a faint river line, a submerged hedgerow drawn in reverse. We do not rush toward names. Instead, we gather impressions like smooth stones in the palm, a flaked edge of something worked by human hands, a darkened smudge that might be a hearth, the ghost shape of ancient oaks now rocking gently beneath kelp. These are modest things, quiet guides, and we hold them the way we hold a warm cup on a cool night. There is a scholar's manner in our curiosity, but not the sharp, hurried kind. This is a tender scholarship, one that lets facts drift forward at their own calm tempo. We may say that the shelf was once land, that the world's breath was colder, that the sea rested farther back, but we say it the way one tucks a blanket around a listener, with care, without insisting. Now imagine the sea drawing back a corner of its curtain, not theatrically, but with the discreet confidence of something that knows it has time. A faint contour of valley appears, a soft fold in the underwater dusk, a memory rising just high enough to greet us. We lean in together, not to pry, not to claim, but simply to see what the water has safeguarded. A hand on the stone beside us anchors the body, keeps us present, reminds us we are stepping into a long, slow remembrance. Once, long before any of us were here, children may have run through grass that now waves faintly beneath kelp. Someone may have sharpened flint on this bank, braided a net in a shallow inlet, or set a small peg to dry by the fire. We do not pretend to know the details. We simply offer ourselves as quiet companions to a landscape holding the memory of its people. Our pace remains slow, sentences stretching like tide lines, commas rowing gently forward, pauses marked as for small breaths, for deeper settling, and sometimes for leaning close without startling anything that sleeps in the dark water. And at the end of this opening, we allow, in which imagination begins to drift, untethered but safe. So we begin with this strengthened promise, to move with the sea's patience, to notice without seizing, to remember without demanding clarity. We stand together at the threshold, listening as the night unfastens its first secrets and gives us permission, quiet and complete. We begin this morning, though the hour is private to us, with the ordinary orchestration of a small harbor, the low metallic click of a rope against a post, the soft rubbing of a skiff's hull, the distant, slow creak of a mooring. These are the sounds that hold a day together here, as steady and necessary as a heartbeat. Imagine, With us, a quay that once felt the soles of many feet, the tide lifts and lowers as if marking time by a gentle ritual, and people moved within that rhythm, not hurriedly. First, the harbor. Nets are refreshed in the cool light, thin threads passing through fingers that know where a knot should sit. The smell is salt mixed with the sweeter memory of damp seaweed. Hands move in patient repetition, the mouth shaped into a small conversation about weather and yield. A lamp may hang from a post, its glass clouded by spray, and the lamp's pale halo makes the wet rope glisten. We might suppose these hands belong to people whose hours are counted in tides. Second, an avenue of oaks that ran along a ridge and now shows as a pale suggestion beneath kelp. Picture trunks spaced like polite columns, leaves that once made a green precinct where children could move unseen. The avenue is a memory held in the shelf's patience. We pass our fingers, imaginatively, over smooth bark and feel the ridges left by years of growth. The sound here is a soft hush of leaves and the creak of a forgotten swing. It is a terrestrial quiet folded into marine blue. Third, the hearth, close to a tidal plain, a domestic heart that burns not for ceremony but for warmth and the slow preparation of food. Think of smoke and flatbread, the quiet scraping of a pebble against a knife to sharpen it, the murmur of two voices beside the flame. We feel the heat as if it were a hand warmed against ours, a private warmth that does not ask to be observed. The reader will perhaps imagine the careful arrangement of utensils and the steady pace of porch talk. Fourth, the tidal plain itself, a wide, patient place that receives the sea and returns it, where carts once left faint ruts and where birds find rest at the tide's pause. The plain is a map of soft textures, mud that yields, grass that bends, water that pools then disperses. We walk over it in imagination, feeling the give beneath our soles, the cool that climbs through thin soles, the small sinking that asks us to be attentive. How does the mind accept such slow motion without pressing for speed? Throughout the day there are attending rhythms. The repair of a net at the harbor, the tying of a child's hair beside the oak, the turning of a spit by the hearth, the measured footfalls across the plain. These modest scenes compose a whole existence without straining for drama. We pay attention in the tone of a reader who has learned that small details hold up whole worlds. There are touches of trade, barter at low tide, a boat for a length of woven cloth, a list of favors remembered and repaid. Trade here is quiet and human, a cycle that knits households together. Hear the low barter voice, the counting on fingers, the soft sealing of agreements like small promises in the palm. A scholar's aside, such exchanges rarely make it into grand histories, yet they are the scaffolding of daily life. A sustained wonder. What does it mean that such ordinary days are the things the sea now keeps? We find in that thought a gentle astonishment, that the smallness of daily life is its own kind of eternity. One might note, as a scholar, that archaeological traces of such days are fragmentary, flint, a peg, a hearth smudge, but those fragments hold an entire texture of living. We say this as a quiet revelation, and let it rest. We add body return cues. Feel the weight of your limbs as you imagine the quay. Notice looseness in your shoulders as you picture hands mending a net. Let your feet sense the soft give of a tidal plain beneath them. These invitations bring the body along with the mind. We hear other small sounds, the soft plash of an oar in shallow water, the distant call of a curlew, the scuff of shoes on wet wood. A flint is napped and a sharp edge catches the light. Useful, practical, and oddly lovely in its smallness. It is a curious fact that these daily acts amount to a kind of liturgy. One might note, as a scholar, that habit itself is the framework of meaning. Seasons move beneath and around these hours, spring's quickening, autumn's packing, and the sea keeps time with the tides. I am put in mind of our own household rhythms, which mark out days in cups and folded cloth. Let us hold the specific and the vast together, breathing with the tide. There is a hush to the reveal, never a sudden unmasking, but a careful, deliberate easing of water. And here we find the primary mystery not as a single dramatic event, but as a layered question that invites patient attention. We peer into a valley outline, and the mind offers several gentle theories like small shells placed in the palm, a slow patient return of the sea over centuries, a sudden inlet carved by a storm that took a shoreline in one night, or the quiet, human-paced undoing of lands, fields all. First, the patient return. Imagine the sea as a slow reader, turning pages in a large book. Over millennia, the shoreline advanced, drawn by warming and rising seas, and river mouths that once lay inland became drowned estuaries. In this view, there is no drama, only persistence. Years layering on years until the open grass becomes a shallow blue. We imagine standing on the old bank and feeling the cool clay beneath our toes as the water's lip inches closer each season. Feel that smallness in the body. Notice how the shoulders unbind and the chest quiets with the slow motion of the tide. Second, the sudden inlet. Picture instead a single turning, a storm that rearranged all the small certainties in one violent night. A breach that let the ocean pour in and redraw settlement lines by morning. Even in this idea, the emphasis is muted. We do not dramatize ruin, but consider how a single event can change the rhythm of ordinary things. How the path to the Oak Avenue might be broken in one night and the mouths of the river learn a new course. Such an image carries the hush of astonishment more than alarm. We allow our breath to tighten briefly and then to let go as the picture softens. Third, the human slow undoing. Fields abandoned, pastures left to smother, peat oxidizing when drained, settlements retreating in stages as social networks alter and trade shifts. Human choices that, over time, allow the sea to walk back into what was once lived upon. This theory sits with a reflective ache. It asks us to feel accountable in a soft way, as if to say that impermanence is partly our daily companion. We imagine the smell of drying roots, the slackening of cords, the quiet packing of a chest, domestic images that fold into the larger pattern. Between these theories is the ziggurat motif that begins as an archaeological whisper and then grows, in our imagination, into a structural symbol, a submerged mound that rises above the velvet silt like the shoulder of a sleeping figure. We call it a ziggurat not to insist a temple, but to give the mind a shape to hold, stepped, patient, and inward-facing. In one of our small dives among the hypotheses, we lean toward an inner chamber moment. We imagine ourselves, without haste, entering a low, water-worn aperture and following the subdued echo of our own breathing into a hollow that has kept its own quiet. Inside that chamber, the air is different. If there is air at all, it is a remembered air, sweetened by ancient smoke and sealed from the relentless currents. The sound is a muted plash distant as memory. At the heart of the chamber, half buried in silt, is a single small object, a carved peg, smoothed by a child's thumb perhaps, its edges softened by hands and tide. We lift it in thought. It has the honest weight of ordinary use and bears a thumb mark still warm with story. We feel the texture against our palms as if the years had left fingerprints in the air. That peg, or a child's toy, or a thumb-pressed bead, whichever tender object the imagination tends toward, becomes our emblem for the human scale of the mystery. It ties the broad geological questions to a specific, intimate presence, a hand that once needed that peg, a person who bent to small tasks, a life not grand, but meaningful in the way that small patterns of habit make meaning. We place that object beside us and treat it as a companion. We listen to what it keeps for us. The ambiguity in these possibilities is not a failure of knowledge, but an invitation to be comfortable with not knowing. Clark-like, We allow the archive of possibilities to exist in parallel, and Gaiman-like, we let the story things speak softly in the dark. What does the ambiguity ask of us but patience? The scholar in us notes that evidence, sonar ridges, flint scatters, peat horizons, can be read many ways. The companion in us says that reading is an act of care, not conquest. To the body, these contemplations offer small tasks. Shift your weight into the chair, feel the round of your breath, let the shoulders soften. We mention such things deliberately. We tuck the listener back into their own skin so that imagination does not float untethered. When we picture the inner chamber, we also feel the press of cool stone beneath our palms. When we imagine the sudden inlet, we allow ourselves a sympathetic tightening in the chest, and then a letting go. There are tender stories woven amid the speculation. Fisher folk who noticed a new rock in the channel and marked it with a rope. A peat cutter who pulled up an old post and found a bead tangled in roots. A diver whose lamp found a rib of worked stone and then, in the dark, saw the ziggurat's contour and swallowed his breath with quiet joy. These small recognitions are the moments that make a mystery human. They are not made for headlines, but for soft remembrance. The inner chamber moment holds a particular solace. In the half-light, with silt gently sifting, we find that small object and understand, without being dramatic, that lives are assembled from tiny, durable things. The ziggurat is less a grand ruin than a repository of gestures, pegs, beads, a child's thumb mark, ethical traces we can touch in memory. So we keep our theories close and light. Patient return, sudden inlet, human undoing. Each steps forward at intervals, like tides. Each offers a different way of holding the peg in our palm. We do not choose. We let the parallel possibilities sit side by side, a calm ambiguity that allows us to wonder rather than to answer. Sometimes, faint cartographies appear. Fishermen's notations, peat stains like pen marks, the rough memory of paths marked by repeated feet. We imagine tracing them with a fingertip and feeling a shiver of recognition, as if a hand from long ago had brushed ours in passing. Proof that lives persisted and that the sea kept them whole. Now, as we move on from this section, let the rhythm of your breathing be slow and even. Let the image of the pegged object rest in your hand, warming slightly with the warmth of thought. We press our palms together in the imagination and feel the quiet weight of what is kept. We take the longer view here, and length is a comfort, not an argument, but a manner of listening that lets centuries breathe between our sentences. Imagine glaciers as slow exhalations, their edges melting into rivers that learned new routes and then forgot them to time. The land we talk about unfolded in stages, an open tundra where wind had room, a young forest where oaks gathered, a marsh that received river and rain, and finally the patient blue. There is a rhythm to these changes that resembles a lullaby. Rise, settle, fold, rest. Rise, settle, fold, rest. Repeat this with us once, softly, and feel how it sets the chest to a broader tempo. In that rhythm, the river's course is like a drawn line across a page. It moves, it widens, it braids, and then the sea learns to overlap the margins where people once walked. Imagine the braided estuary as a hand of channels, each finger carrying sediment and seeds, each finger later swallowed. Listen to the sounds we might imagine in such long scenes. A distant grinding where ice meets stony soil, as if the ground were sanding away a rough edge. The thin, far-off sound of thaw running into a valley. Then a softer, wetter music where reeds take up the wind's tune. These are extended cadences that require patience to notice. We ask you to let your attention lengthen with the sounds, to let small noises become the main event. A scholar's aside rests here. These words, post-glacial, Holocene, are anchors in geological time, measures that give scale to what otherwise feels infinite. Yet we fold them back into tactile imagery. Imagine, for instance, a floodplain that over centuries becomes peat. That peat preserves the smell of an autumn fire and the pressed impression of a foot. The scientist might call this a peat horizon. We call it a preserved breath. Rivers do not vanish so much as they relocate their habits. They cut channels, then retire. One course becomes a memory pressed into silt. Imagine tracing a riverbed with the tip of a finger beneath water. The line resists and guides. Beneath your left foot, in this thought, is a pale ridge formed of old flints and rain-crumbled soil. It registers as a coolness that spreads up through the ankle. Notice that coolness. Let it ground you. The shelf itself is an archive of texture, layers of sand, layers of peat, stone terraces that read like ledger lines when seen by sonar. Sonar maps show ridges and basins in gentle bands, as if the seafloor had been given a pen and asked to write slow, careful notes. When we look at these maps, we do so as readers of an old script. Each subtle hump may be an old field, each trough a former hollow where children ran. Here the ziggurat motif returns as something made natural by time. Imagine a terraced mound that once held soil and posts, and perhaps a timber building. Tides have smoothed its edges, and sediment has given it a soft, step-like aspect. It reads both as architecture and as a geological feature, man arranging earth and the sea later arranging that arrangement. In the long view, human shaping and natural shaping are braided gestures, indistinguishable, like two hands clasped and left to sleep. Think of the smell of the place changing over epochs. A crisp, sulfur sweetness when peat is newly formed. Later the damp, warm smell of root and river. Later still the cool, clean scent of brine. These olfactory stages are like chapter headings, and by naming them we allow the body to remember whole climates in a single inhale. Breathe with us, and note how temperature suggestion moves from cold to tolerant warmth to the final cool blue, softly now. Consider small human scales within these vast changes. A fence moved back by a generation, a well abandoned and later sealed by silt, a field left fallow that becomes a marsh patch, and then a bed for eelgrass. These are processes that ask nothing of drama, but much of attention. We feel a respectful ache when we imagine the first person to look at a newly risen waterline and to consider staying or leaving. That ache is human detail, and it is quiet. The ziggurat's inner chamber, which we touched on in the previous section, becomes here a place where memory is compressed. As tidal sediments deposited in subtle steps, they preserved niches, a corner where a pot once stood, a post hole filled with shells. Picture lowering a lamp into such a hollow and watching motes of silt drift like slow stars. The chamber does not shout meaning, it keeps small lights. We make another small scholar's aside. Peat and shell dates, radiocarbon anchors, give us windows, not answers, into when events occurred. The technicalities are not where the consolation lies. It lies in the proof that time keeps record, that the land is patient enough to keep an inventory of small lives. We accept those measures as gentle certainties. In the long view, human life feels both brief and continuous. Families rise and adapt. Languages alter. A trade route migrates inland or out to sea. Yet habits recur with such similarity that the landscape seems to remind us of itself. We sense this as a comfort, continuity without insistence. Let us hold the thought of continuity and let it ease the mind. Bring attention back, now, to the body. Feel the slow length of your spine. Imagine it matching a cliff's patient vertical. Let the breath slow as if learning the tide's tempo. We will carry the idea of geological patience forward like a lamp, and our next steps will move from the broad to the intimate, from the map to the object. For now, settle into the wide view, and let rise, settle, fold, rest be the pulse that steadies the chest. We lean closer now to the small objects that gossip to us through silt. And we keep our voices low because these things were meant for hands rather than for loud description. There is a tenderness to describing an object found by accident, in the way a pocketed charm is found at the bottom of a coat. Imagine a trawler's slow, methodical pass across a plain that was once meadow. The net comes up heavy, and among weed and shell there is a flash of worked flint, a blade whose edge carries the geometry of use. It is not ornamental. It is elbowed by labor, polished where it was held. Picture a hand reaching, fingers careful, lifting the flake and turning it so light plays across its scarred face. We imagine the small nick that came from a particular chore, cutting cord perhaps, and feel that domestic intimacy as a small present. Consider peat yielding a branch, a preserved twig like a scent letter. Peat keeps scent. It is a book bound in earth. When a peat cutter lifts that branch, it smells faintly of smoked meat and wet root. Hold the branch in your mind. Its wood is tender to the press. It leaves a damp impression, and if you tilt it, you see the hollow where a nail once sat. These are not treasures of wealth, but pieces of everyday life that travel time like quiet witnesses. A diver's lamp sometimes finds a dark curve of stone where the light pools and then releases motes like tiny moons. The diver brushes a film away to reveal worked surfaces, a footing or corner. The tactile astonishment is quiet. The immediate thing is the particular way stone wears with water, its softened edge like a thumbprint. We imagine bringing the object into a pocket of air in the lamp and feeling its weight, the way a small artifact prescribes a careful posture when held. Each discovery is a low, domestic revelation rather than a headline. A blade is a blade. A post hole is a post hole. A bead is a bead. Together they compose a grammar of past use. We arrange these quiet testimonies like pebbles in rows so we can read a sentence. Here was cutting, here was cooking, here was play. The rhythm of hand to task is restful rather than sharp. In attending to habit, we feel the shape of ordinary lives. One returning story, a trawler pulled up a small carved peg, its end smoothed into a fingertip bulb. The crew wrapped it, and later a diver confirmed the peg fit into a mortise in a submerged beam like a missing piece. The peg's fit is intimate, like a clasp found again, and proves the presence of hands on the shelf. We close our fingers around that peg in thought and feel the honest weight of ordinary use, as if hands across millennia had simply passed on a small, necessary object. We use words like peat, floor, and post hole, but we speak them slowly and with texture. A peat horizon is not merely stratigraphy. It is a preserved mattress of decayed plant that holds the faint relief of a boot. A floor is not only compacted soil, it is the place where crumbs fell and were retrieved by birds. Post holes are small wells where posts stood and gathered rot. Saying these things gently keeps them safe and keeps our attention kindly localized. We pause for a private conservation scene. A gloved hand lifts a sliver of wood from stabilizing fluid, and the lights catch the wet grain like a small map. The room smells of paper and careful solvent. Instruments murmur. There is a hush when fragile things are unwrapped. The tissue slides, breath held, and then a soft note of wonder. It is not spectacle, but the careful work of keeping. The modern sounds, the precise scrape of a scalpel, the measured whir of a hood, settle into the same respectful hush as peat and silt. Peat-preserved hearths give domestic detail. Charred grain, a stone reddened by heat, a shard with soot. Imagine a hand turning dough, flour on knuckles, a low laugh about weather. These small gestures are the life the shelf preserves. Sometimes an object from an inner hollow bears a smear of ochre or a thumb curve that reads like a signature. Such traces bridge the immense and the intimate, and in them we find the true tenderness of archaeology. Tactile astonishment is often private. One diver described a bone-smooth stone that fit his palm as if made for it. Another lifted a pot rim whose interior still held flecks of char. Such intimacies are the soft currency of discovery. Academics translate them into dates and typologies, but the first purchase is always bodily, skin meeting artifact, palm against worked edge. When we imagine handling these finds, we practice a careful ethics. We treat them as companions, not trophies. We do not demand they yield grand narratives. We let them testify to ordinary lives. In doing so, we change how we listen, attending to thumb impressions and repetitive wear, the small lines that speak across centuries. Habit itself becomes the archive, a catalog of mending, cutting, weaving, and the patient work of hands. The archaeology of the Celtic Shelf is largely a catalog of habit, daily actions that accrue into culture, and that catalog is patient. It suggests meaning grows through repetition rather than spectacle. Let this thought be consoling rather than urgent. Before we leave this place of objects, perform a small bodily ritual. Press the fingertips of both hands together, notice their warmth, and imagine that warmth passing into a wooden peg or a flint blade that lies cool in the mind's hand. Let this transfer be an act of respectful custody. We keep the objects safe in thought and let their testimony settle inside us like a benediction. These finds ask not for explanation, but for company. We place them back into the slow blue of the shelf in imagination, where they continue their long rest. We handled them tenderly and returned them to keeping, an act of gentle reciprocity and rest. We sit in the small roundness of a household day and listen to its careful measures, the sound of the hearth's ember when it is raked, the faint damp slap of cloth being wrung, the low chorus of voices that do not need to be raised because they are meant only for each other. These are the quiet markers by which life arranges itself here. Morning unrolls slowly beside an estuary. We smell the warm, oily scent of fish drying on racks, the faint linen tang of cloth newly washed and left to dry. A boat is hauled free of mud with hands that know the angles. A single rope creaks, the small frictional voice of labor. Imagine these hands, calloused but careful, and feel, in your own fingers, a corresponding looseness. Let the hands unclench now. Notice the small space between thumb and forefinger expand. We match the small economy of effort. There is a simple inventory to a day: gather, mend, trade, sleep. Gathering moves from field to mouth, berries salted, eels smoked, seaweed folded and stored. Some plants are gathered at dawn when their scent cups the air. Mending is a slow act, knot after knot in a net, a patch pressed and sewn until it will hold another season. The motion of the hand is a metronome. Picture the needle's slow arc and let your own breath find that same measured rhythm. Small craft slip down the estuary at a hush. Oars make polite, regular sounds. Pluck, slide, pluck, each stroke conserving effort. Hear someone sing a line to remember a sequence. This is a tool to keep hands and thought in time. The plash against a low hull, the soft spray on a cheek, all register as gentle punctuation. Let your breath lengthen with the oar stroke, and notice how thought becomes more tide than arrow. Children are present in diffuse ways. A folded blanket near the hearth, a patched shoe by the door, the muffled echo of a giggle. Their play is woven into domestic rhythm. A child's small project, a braided cord, or a pebble collection becomes household memory. The weight of a child leaning on a knee steadies attention. Feel that gentle pressure in the thigh and accept a softening of thought. Trade is modest and human. A barter at low tide might exchange cloth for fish. A repaired net is more prized than a braggart's boast. There are itinerants who come but rarely stay. They bring a new pattern of weave, a recipe in a folded scrap, a small ornament traded for service. Notice the low counting voice and the folded fingers that tally. Allow a gentle tightening in the chest, and then its easy release as the agreement slides toward completion. Calm, mutual, ordinary. Evenings close around small rituals, the turning of a spit, the brushing of sand from a table, nets stretched for the morning. Oral memory keeps household lore, a recipe for broth, a trick to mend a tear, spoken softly and repeated because repetition is a form of care. Let these ritual sounds echo in your souls, steady, predictable, like a tide that marks out the day. The estuary receives minor arrivals, a captain who remembers charted ways, a market cart arriving at the higher shore, a map, an oilskin. These currents stir domestic life, but rarely overwhelm it. Think of them as parenthetical companions, soft inflections in the day's melody rather than a change in key. Wet places have peculiar, intimate sounds, the slap of a skin to shoo gulls, the hollow thud of drying racks, the rustle of kelp when tides turn, the thin call of a curlew at dusk. Each sound carries texture and purpose. Attending to them calms the mind because they are concrete. Let these detailed sounds underline your body's presence, the small attentions that anchor the imagination to the body. Imagine simple craft gestures, an oar balanced on a shoulder, a peg driven home with a measured mallet, a stone left to steady a rib. These gestures are acts of competent living. They ask respect more than awe. Press the heel of your hand into your palm. Remember the curve of a boat's grip, and let that imagined pressure soften the jaw and relax the shoulders. There are long, patient social rhythms, marriages arranged kindly, favors observed and repaid, the passing on of a repair pattern from pot to pot. These connective tissues form continuity. They quietly hold a community together. Consider a small kindness you have received and let it bloom warmly in your chest, a domestic tenderness that feels safe and steady. As light dims, the domestic sounds quiet, the last or strokes thin, the hearthstone cools, and blankets are folded again. Rest the soles of your feet flat on a floor and notice the support beneath. Feel stress ease as if a tide smoothed the edges of day. The ordinary lives the sea keeps are steady, hands and small purposes preserved like a careful ledger. Before we move on, take one more body cue. Place both hands over the lower ribs and feel their gentle rise and fall. Match that to the tide's imagined breath and let the ribcage slow a degree more. In this close attention, the day's modest labors settle into a fabric of comfort, and the mind is permitted to drift. We let these small rhythms hold us and ease us into rest. The story of these valleys shifts now from the close breath of households to the wider pulse of water itself. A pulse so patient, so measured, that entire generations lived and died without noticing the change pressing gently at their doorways. We step back, widen our gaze, and feel the landscape breathe on a geological timescale rather than a human one. Imagine the estuary at the edge of a cool morning. The tide comes in not as a single arrival, but as a sequence, an argument made of soft, repeated gestures. Each year, the water climbs a fraction higher, a thumb's width, a palm's, barely a conversation. But in the span of centuries, these fractions become something noticeable, a silence where dry ground once existed, a new mirror pooling at the edge of a path, a need to ferry where once one simply walked. Let your breath follow this imagining. Inhale for the slow rise, and feel the exhale lengthen like a tide retreating in no hurry to leave. We witness the long drowning not as tragedy, but as transformation. The rivers fatten, their banks soften, tidal tongues reach farther inland. Marshes that were once seasonal begin to linger all year, their reeds sighing in a slow, persistent music. The people adapt at first without alarm. They are used to the sea's moods. But season after season, an elder might frown at a familiar bend in the river and murmur that the land seems to be standing a little lower than before. Picture this bend, the damp grass giving beneath a heel, the soil darker, richer, a little too eager to drink the light, and allow your own weight to settle, the muscles of your legs softening as if you too were becoming a little more earth, a little less air. In time, the change becomes visible in patterns of movement. Where children once ran along exposed tidal flats, they now must wait for low tide. Where boats once rested on sand, they now float a little longer each evening. A new caution enters daily living, but it is a quiet caution, instinctive, practical, never frantic. Human rhythms adjust the way a sleeping body adjusts to a blanket tugged slightly higher in the night, unconsciously, smoothly. Imagine a longhouse built close to a creek. Its doorway once faced fields of dry sedge. Now, after rain, thin channels braid themselves toward the threshold. People begin placing stones to guide the water away. They speak of it lightly, a joke at meals, a comment about wetter summers. But the stones multiply, then wooden planks, then raised shelves inside the dwelling to keep tools dry. We understand now that their world is already slipping under the first hints of the Celtic Sea. And yet, there is no fear here, only adaptation. A tenderness in how people care for what remains above water. This tenderness slows the mind, eases the ribs, lets the breath steady. We watch a shoreline creep. Pebble banks rearrange themselves. A favorite gathering place becomes seasonally unreachable. And then, imperceptibly, permanently unreachable. The land does not vanish. It simply reshapes the way a memory reshapes itself, softening at the edges, paling but never gone. Let your shoulders soften with that image. Imagine releasing something not in grief but in acceptance, the way a shoreline releases a stone into deeper water with no sound but a small ripple. Community paths reroute. New moorings are hammered into higher points along the bank. Small boats, once tools of short crossings, become companions in everyday life. Fishing nets are altered to suit the new flow of tidal currents. Baskets woven tighter, spear lengths recalibrated. People learn by watching the sea's new grammar, listening to its patient instructional murmurs. In distant memory, elders speak of forests that once reached farther toward the horizon. Those forests now stand like dark islands in expanded wetlands. Step by step, pool by pool, field by field, the world is migrating toward amphibiousness. And still the transformation is so slow it feels gentle. We walk through an imagined evening. Fog drifts low, hugging the reeds. The old paths shine faintly under a wash of shallow water. Through this shimmering quiet, a figure crosses in a small skin boat, pushing off with a single pole. The pole enters the water without splash, only a weighted hush. Feel that hush. Let it settle through your chest like warm sand, steadying your breath. The people embrace this amphibious era creatively. Raised granaries, light platforms woven from reeds. Seasonal shelters move to higher ground with communal effort. A map of the world rewritten not on hide or bark, but in habit, where feet will step and where they will float. Eventually, the sea completes its long, persuasive reasoning. Valleys fold themselves under the rising blue. Rivers surrender their lower courses. Settlements shift upward, not hurriedly, but with the calm of a community that understands cycles bigger than itself. The youngest children grow up believing the new coastline has always been the coastline. They do not imagine that the meadow where their grandparents played now lies beneath 3 fathoms of quiet water. We pause here. Let that imagined depth rest on your mind. 3 slow breaths. Inhale gently. Exhale longer. Inhale softly. Exhale deeper. And one last breath that drifts outward like a tide smoothing into dusk. The drowned valleys sleep now, sealed beneath silt and current. They are not lost. They are simply resting in another form. The long drowning has no violence in it, only patience. And in that patience, we find the first true shape of the Celtic Shelf as it exists today. A quilt of old riverbeds, hill shadows, and ghost paths, held in soft blue light. We continue soon. For now, let the slow, steady rise of ancient tides lull the mind toward stillness. Allow your breath to widen into the quiet, the way a shoreline widens into the sea. The landscape is changing, yes, but gently, always gently. There comes a point in every quiet exploration when the mind, softened by slow landscapes and easy breath, begins to drift of its own accord, not away from the story, but sideways, into those gentle little alcoves of thought that feel like warm pockets of air beneath water. This section lives in those pockets. We drift, we pause, we circle, and we return, each tangent a small eddy designed to draw the listener closer to sleep. Let us begin with something very small. Imagine a single pebble, no wider than your thumb, resting on the bed of a long-drowned stream. The pebble has been shaped by tens of thousands of tiny touches, glacial push, river pull, tide breath. Now it lies still, wrapped in a dark cradle of silt. When a faint underwater current moves through the valley, the pebble shifts barely a millimeter, just enough to whisper against another stone. A sound so soft it is more suggestion than noise. Pause with that whisper. Let your exhale fall into its rhythm. A pebble resting and resting and resting. Now let us drift to a kelp forest that once rose where a hedgerow marked the boundary of field and home. Feel the long amber fronds sway in the muted current, weaving slow, drowsy patterns. Small fish flicker between them like exhausted sparks, each movement quiet, each turn effortless. Kelp is patient, it grows, it bows, it sleeps, it rises. A breathing of the sea. Let your shoulders loosen, mirroring that slow underwater sway. A gentle drift, a gentle fold, a gentle rise. Now, a softer tangent still. Picture the long sleep of an anemone. It sits upon a drowned ridge, pale arms barely moving, opening, closing, opening again, as if counting long invisible hours. In the silt around it, tiny lives continue unnoticed. A stray grain settles on one of the creature's arms, and after a long moment, the arm curls inward, unhurried, like a yawn. Then it rests again, unconcerned. The anemone does not measure time as we do. It receives and releases without thought. Let your breath do the same, receiving, releasing, without effort. Now another drift sideways, a story so small it hardly qualifies as a story. A piece of old wood, water-darkened, gently swollen, lies half buried in the soft bed of the ancient valley. Perhaps it was once the rib of a boat, or a discarded tool handle, or part of a simple fence that marked a boundary no one remembers. Its surface is furrowed, like the wrinkles of a sleeping face. When silt settles on it, it looks almost like a creature curled into a nest. When the tide shifts, only a small corner of the wood appears, then disappears again, like a dream fragment rising and sinking between breaths. Hold that image the way one holds a dream half forgotten upon waking, lightly, without chase. And now, let us drift again, moving gently into the airy quiet of a submerged reed bed. These reeds once clattered in the wind. Now they stand like ghost threads beneath the surface. Bubbles cling to their stems, rising slowly, one at a time, as if the valley were sighing in its sleep. A tiny fish explores the stems. A small crab shuffles. The world continues, soft and unhurried. Feel your ribcage echo that slow rising of bubbles, round, light, unforced. Another tangent offers itself, the migration of a starfish. It moves by almost invisible increments, its soft undersurface finding purchase against stone. The journey is not long, perhaps just across a ridge of ancient sediment, but the starfish does not rush. There is no reason to. And in this patient movement, there is a strange comfort, the reassurance that motion does not need to be quick to be purposeful. Many good things in nature move so slowly they are almost still. Allow that slowness to seep into your own thoughts, thinning the pace, softening the edges. Now let us drift farther outward, to where the drowned river valley widens and the silt becomes smoother, almost velvety. Here lies a single preserved shell, its spiral faintly luminescent in the dimness. Once, it was carried in the pocket of a child walking along a shore. Perhaps it fell. Perhaps it was placed as a tiny offering. Now it sleeps in the valley's silt. The shape of a small hand still seems to cling to it in memory. Pause. Feel how small memories can be, and how gently the sea keeps them. Another tangent. A trail of sand slowly spilling from a forgotten slope. Each grain rolls down in its own time, making a path that recreates itself every day. If you drift your mind close enough, you can almost hear it. A sound like the faintest static, or like rain falling somewhere far away but warm, almost inviting. Let your awareness loosen into that soft, steady fall, like warm rain, like falling sand, like the mind settling. Here is a final tangent, perhaps the most soothing of all, the slow darkness of deep water, not frightening or cold, but velvety and thick with calm. In this darkness, sound becomes softer, edges become round, and everything that moves does so with an ease that feels inevitable. It is the darkness of evening, not night, of a room lit only by memory, of a landscape folding into sleep. Let that darkness wrap gently around your imagination, not covering. In these digressions, we find the valley as it truly exists now, a place where every small movement is both present and ancient, where each detail invites a drifting attention and then releases it. The tangents do not lead anywhere, except deeper into rest. And so we drift too. A pebble shifting, a kelp frond waving, a bubble rising, a starfish wandering, a shell sleeping, silt falling, darkness deepening. Each one settles, each one rests. And so do we. When you're ready, we'll return to the main current. But there is no hurry. The valley waits. The sea waits. Everything here waits in kindness. There is a point, as we drift above the long-drowned valleys, where the archaeology and the geology grow so quiet, so hushed, that the only voices left are those of stories. Not loud stories, not heroic tales, but the faint, hearth-warmed whispers that people once told to make sense of the land as it slowly changed beneath their feet. These soft myths arrive like threads of smoke from a peat fire, twisting gently, never fully shaping themselves, and never needing to. Let us hold a few of them together for a moment, lightly, as one holds a dried flower between the pages of a book. There is an old whisper about fields beneath the waves, a story once told in cottages that leaned toward the sea. Elders would murmur that, in the very stillness before dawn, one could hear the faint echo of cattle bells ringing from somewhere under the water, not urgently, but faintly, like a memory brushing past. No one claimed to see the cattle, of course. The tale was not meant to explain, it was meant to comfort. A way of saying that what vanished did not vanish entirely, that the valley, though drowned, still held the soft outline of its former life. Let that idea settle for a moment, that some things continue quietly, without needing to be seen. Another story drifts through these waters, the tale of the river women who guided boats. These were not sirens or omens. They were gentle figures of guidance, imagined as guardians of foggy crossings. Fisher folk would speak of them with affection, not fear. It was said that on thick mornings, when the estuary was muffled in mist, one felt a subtle tug on the oars, as if unseen hands were helping rather than hindering. A quiet companionship, a reminder that the river and the people understood one another. Pause with that companionship, that sense of being led, softly, through uncertain water. And then there was the murmured belief in the sleeping hearthlights. Families once told their children that, in deep water, the lights of ancient homes sometimes flickered for a moment. Not real flames, but glimmers of memory rising through the tide. They appeared rarely, and only to those who needed reassurance. These were not ghosts, not warnings, but echoes of warmth. The idea that somewhere beneath the waves, The homes that once sheltered lives continued to keep a quiet watch. Let that imagined glow warm the mind the way a dim candle does, small, steady, unthreatening. Another soft tale spoke of the tide hum, a murmuring sound that seemed to come from the seafloor itself. Fishermen described it as a long, low vowel, something between a sigh and a hum, rising from the drowned valleys at night. They said it was the earth remembering, or perhaps the rivers speaking in their sleep. It was never frightening. It was a sound that soothed the restless and the lonely, a reminder that the land, though hidden, was still alive in some tender, unmeasured way. Let that imagined hum align with your own slow inhale and linger through the exhale. Some spoke, too, of the wandering lights along the submerged ridges, describing them as gentle lanterns drifting beneath the surface. Perhaps bioluminescent creatures, perhaps tricks of moonlight, perhaps just the sea playing with memory. But in the old stories, these lights were messengers of calm weather, drifting slowly in the shallows to promise safe passage for the morning's voyage. And in these drifting lights, there is a certain peace, a brightness without urgency, a glow without demand. These myths were never about fear or lost worlds torn away. They were lullabies of place, soft ways of grounding oneself in a landscape that was always changing. In telling them, communities were offering each other a quiet assurance that time may reshape the world, but the world does not forget its own contours, that the sea covers, but also remembers. As we drift above the Celtic Shelf now, far from the warm hearths where these stories first unfolded, the tales feel even gentler, like distant songs softened by water. They fold into the drowned valleys with ease, the bells, the guiding hands, the glimmering hearthlight, the tide hum, the wandering lanterns. None demand belief, all offer comfort, and we, floating in this calm blue dusk, carry them with us, not as answers, but as companions, not as history, but as tenderness preserved. Let them echo softly as we continue, a quiet chorus beneath our descent, guiding us into the stiller waters ahead. There comes a point in any long wandering, whether over land or through memory, when the landscape itself pauses, as if waiting for us to catch up to our own hearts. Here, above the drowned valleys of the Celtic Shelf, that moment arrives softly, not with revelation, not with sorrow, but with a kind of quiet companionship that settles around us like a shared blanket. We drift, and the water drifts with us, and the difference between the two becomes wonderfully small. What is it we feel here? Not loneliness, not quite nostalgia, something gentler, a tender recognition that everything beneath us once held lives that moved slowly, deliberately, with the same mixture of hope and routine that shapes our own days. We imagine, together, the faint warmth of old hearthstones now cooled by centuries of silt, and in doing so, we feel our own chests soften, as though the past were breathing beside us. We linger over that feeling, letting it expand, letting it settle. It is a curious fact that quiet landscapes often make the closest companions. We glide over a slope that once held a footpath, and we feel, in our ribs, in the slowing weight of our breath, the presence of footsteps that are not ours, and yet somehow familiar. It is as though the long memory of the land meets our own small memories halfway, and together they form a stillness that asks nothing from us except to rest in it. We rest, and the sea rests with us. We listen for a moment to the hush beneath the surface, not silence, exactly, but a soft layering, the slow grain of shifting sand, the faint chime of distant pebbles tumbling, the muted thrum of water pressing patiently against the old valley walls. These sounds do not demand attention. They offer it, quietly, like someone sitting beside us in kind understanding. And in their presence, we let our shoulders loosen. We let our breath lengthen. We let our bodies grow a little heavier, the way one does when finally trusting the warmth of shared company. There is something deeply consoling in recognizing that loss and preservation are not opposites here. The sea did not erase the valleys, it softened them. It did not take the hearths, it wrapped them in cool blue patience. And perhaps, in its slow covering, it did what time often does best. It held the stories gently, smoothing their edges, keeping only what was meant to last. We drift deeper into that thought, not analyzing it, just letting it glow quietly. Imagine, for a moment, crouching beside one of those old hearths before it sank beneath the rising tide. Picture the low fire, the smell of silt and smoke, the hum of evening voices. Now imagine that same hearth beneath the sea, unlit, unmoving, but not undone. Stone still holds memory. Ash still remembers warmth. Even in darkness, some part of every home keeps its soft watch. And as we hover above it, strangely, we feel kept as well, as though the past, instead of being distant, curls its arm around us for a brief and tender moment. We breathe with that feeling. We let it expand in our chests. We let it soften our edges, just as the sea softened the land. Companionship takes many forms. Sometimes it is a person walking beside us. Sometimes it is a hand resting lightly on our shoulder. And sometimes, unexpectedly, wonderfully, it is a drowned valley that reminds us that nothing vanishes entirely, that every life leaves textures and warmths that linger in the world long after footsteps fade. Here, in this quiet blue corridor of memory, we are not alone. The land beneath us is not empty, it is simply resting. The people who once moved through it are not lost. Their traces hum softly under the shifting silt. And we, floating gently above, feel the weight of our own thoughts ease, the way a tide pulls tension away from the shore. Let that easing continue. Let the breath deepen. Let the valley below cradle us as tenderly as it cradles its own long history. We drift onward now, not searching, not studying, but simply sharing space with the sea, with the past, with one another. And in this companionship, warm and unhurried, we find ourselves ready for the quiet resolution ahead, a place where everything rests, and we may rest with it. It is said that in every drowned palace there exists a place where sound forgets its edges, a corridor where even our thoughts seem to soften, rounding their corners as though shaped by centuries of quiet water. We drift into that hallway now. The long passage stretches ahead of us, ribbed like the inner curve of a conch shell. The pillars, once crisp with carved declarations of lineage and triumph, have been worn smooth by time into gentle silhouettes. Nothing is sharp here. Nothing is abrupt. Even the shadows move with a tidal patience, folding and unfolding like silk. We breathe in, and the corridor seems to breathe with us. A faint echo rises, yet it is not the echo of our bodies. It is older, far older, a residue of footsteps once taken, conversations once whispered, decisions once made under torchlight. But the water has rewritten them. They are only impressions now, softened into tones rather than words, warmth rather than instruction. We pass an alcove where a statue once stood upright. Now it leans slightly, as though dozing, stone cheek nestled into the curve of the wall. Tiny silver fish nestling in its empty palms like offerings. We feel, for a moment, as though we are witnessing a temple dreaming of its former purpose. And still we glide forward. The echo changes timbre, a low, velvety hum, the kind that seems to live in the bones rather than the ears. It isn't threatening. If anything, it welcomes us. It is the deep, patient heartbeat of a place relieved of its burdens, relieved of meaning, relieved of expectation. A place that continues simply because continuing is its nature. We allow each pulse of that hum to loosen the last tight threads inside us. Shoulders unspool, jaw softens, mind widens like a tidal pool filling. The corridor ends in a broken arch, its frame half claimed by drifting seagrass. Beyond it lies a darker chamber we will enter soon. But for now, Before we cross that threshold, we pause. And in our pause, the soft echoes flutter around us like gentle wings. It is here, in this tender hush, that we understand something profound and strangely comforting. That even ruins have a pulse. That even silence has a shape. And that we, too, can become part of this quiet, steady unfolding. We drift beneath the broken arch, letting the darker water settle around us like a cool shawl. The chamber ahead feels vast at first, like stepping into a submerged night sky. But as our eyes adjust to the muted half-light, shapes begin to emerge, slowly, gently, as though the room prefers to reveal itself only to those who arrive without hurry. This is the chamber of lantern silt. Its floor is a wide basin of pale sand, so fine it moves like smoke when touched. But instead of rising sharply, the silt glows, softly, warmly, as though each grain remembers sunlight and has decided not to let that memory go. The effect is subtle, not brightness, but a suggestion of illumination, a faint lantern glow scattered across the ground like stardust. We descend a little, letting our presence stir a delicate drift. The glowing grains lift in slow spirals, moving around us like gentle fireflies, their motion too unhurried to be called dance, too serene to be called swirl. They simply rise to greet us, as though pleased we have come. Around the perimeter, ancient columns lean inward, their tops long broken. Seaweed drapes them like faded banners, shifting with each small current. Between the fronds we glimpse fragments of old frescoes, pigments long dissolved, leaving only faint silhouettes. The arc of an arm, the suggestion of a crown, a ship frozen in the moment before a wave touched its bow. Nothing complete, nothing demanding interpretation, only echoes of intention. At the center of the chamber stands a shallow stone bowl, shaped like a moon that forgot its other half. It is filled with silt too, glowing slightly brighter than the rest. We glide closer, sensing the weight of a ritual that once mattered here, though the water has softened its meaning, leaving only the tenderness behind. When we hover above it, the silt responds. It lifts itself in a slow exhale, rising through the water in a column of shimmering dust. And in that rising, faint patterns appear, delicate, fleeting, like half-remembered dreams. Curves resembling waves, spirals reminiscent of shells, the outline of a face that dissolves the moment we try to look directly. The chamber is telling us something, though not in words. It communicates in mood, in sensation, in a softening of the inner breath. We understand, without needing precision, that this place is about release, about letting the old shapes loosen, about allowing meaning to fade into something gentler, something kinder. We inhale, and the glowing silt seems to brighten in answer. We exhale, and it drifts back down, settling peacefully to the basin floor. A silent exchange, a permission granted, a small ceremony complete. At the far end of the chamber, behind a curtain of swaying weeds, we sense another passage, one that leads deeper still, to the final space waiting for us. But for a moment longer we remain here, wrapped in the quiet glow of lantern silt, feeling ourselves grow lighter, clearer, more spacious inside. When we finally move on, the chamber dims behind us, not out of loss, but out of rest, sinking back into its natural hush as though closing its eyes. And we drift forward, ready for the last threshold.